Hello everyone, welcome back to our first ever virtual Librarians Day today. If you have been with us since the beginning, kudos to you. This is a long day when we're here, but I'm sure watching it all on the computer makes it for an extremely long day. So thank you for hanging out with us. If you're just joining us and you haven't watched any of the other videos, just a reminder, they will be available later today. We'll be posting those, so you can go back and watch those at your own leisure. And if I skip anything or if you have questions, feel free to interact with us on the computer. You can leave comments. I am filming this, but I'll be watching along live with you, so I'll be there to answer any questions or comments you might have. If you think it's a great book, please let us know. Hey, I've read that, I loved it, or any comments just like you would if you were live with us. So without further ado, let's start our Christian fiction. And throughout this, you may have a few surprises. I asked some fiction writer friends, acquaintances, to film some messages for you. So those will be popping up throughout this video. So I hope you enjoy that as well. Okay, let's jump right in. Tessa Afshar, daughter of Rome. This is, she writes a lot of biblical fiction, and this is when the daughter of a prominent Roman general meets a disinherited Jewish immigrant. Neither one can dream of God's plan to transform them into the most influential couple of the early church. So Priscilla and Aquila is the story there. Tessa Afshar. Another biblical fiction, Masu Andrews, Isaiah's Legacy. This is the follow-up to Isaiah's Daughter, was the first one in this series. So Isaiah's Legacy, Masu Andrews. Oh, I'm sorry, I've already skipped one. Colors of Truth by Tamara Alexander. If you have been watching for that one, it was supposed to come out in the summertime, and with all of the unrest, especially in the racial tensions in the world, they pushed that one back to October just because of the subject matter. So that one is still coming in October, but we wanted to let you know that. If you want to wait till October to order it, that's fine. If you want to put it on your order, if that's one that you will want, then we will make sure we have a list of those. If I Were You by Lynn Austin. This was my first Lynn Austin book that I've ever read, and it will not be my last. I really liked her. I know I'm kind of late to the party, but this one is set in World War II, and then, so it's the world leading up to World War II, and then 10 years later. So it's a dual time, but it's pretty close in time. It's two friends. One is the daughter of an Englishman who, sorry, I can't ever think of the right words. She lives in a big fancy house in England, and the other's mother is a servant there. So they become friends. They end up living together during the war, both wish they were the other person. So that's where the title comes from, If I Were You. This will be our Novel Thinkers Book Club book. You're getting exclusive information. This is our October choice for Novel Thinkers, and I have a deal for you guys that it's 50% off. We've had it at 40, but it'll be 50% off if you buy it here through this sale. And so Lynn Austin, If I Were You, 1940 and 1950 is the times. The next two are collections, novella collections, The Heart's Stronghold and Blacksmith Brides. We don't always put these on the list, but we just wanted you to see these. Amanda Barrett, Angie Dickin, Gabrielle Meyer, Kimberly Woodhouse, and then this one's Amanda Barrett and some other ladies as well. So a couple of different time periods. New from Amanda Barrett, this is on my list to read one of these days. The White Rose Resists, a novel of German students who defied Hitler. So it's a novelization, but it was a true story that happened. Her first book was My Dearest Dietrich, if you remember that, which was this love story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer and Maria von Windenberg, I believe. So this is another World War II, again, true story that she has fictionalized. The Promise of New Germany, German students who defied Hitler. So, White Rose Resists. Words Between Us. Look at this cover. Isn't it beautiful? Words Between Us by Erin Bartels. She was the author of our book that we did for this month's Novel Thinkers, last month, sorry. We Hope for Better Things, and this was her follow-up to that. They're not related at all, but this is The Words Between Us. It does have a dual timeline, and the characters in this trade. So the male character in this, mother was an English teacher, and he has access to all these classic literature books that he shares with his friend who has had a pretty rough life, and she's never read any of them before. So she reads them, she writes poetry that the book makes her feel, and then gives those back to him kind of as payment. So it's a beautiful story. Takes place in a bookstore, so I like that part. And she, I think, is going to be an up-and-coming author. I'm excited already. She has another book coming out, maybe not till 2021, but I would recommend her books, and I think that everyone who read hers for Novel Thinkers loved it as well. Misty Beller, these are a new to us author. Loves Mountain Quest and Loves Highest Mountain. Oh, I did those backwards. Loved Highest Mountain and Loves Mountain Quest. So a historical set in the Montana Territory. Mountain Laurel is coming. We don't have it yet. So we tried to put dates if we knew that they were coming out soon. This one, it says September 1st, so we should have it anytime. But Lori Benton is a well-respected and loved author. She writes more, she's definitely historical. Sorry, these got out of order. Selah by Lisa Berggren. Come of age on the West Indies in 1776. So this is part of a series. This is book 3, The Sugar Baron's Daughter by Lisa Berggren. Smoke Scream by Terry Blackstock. And I don't know how many copies I have at $5, so don't hold me to that. But that is her newest suspense book. And then what they did was re-release 3 books. They put new covers on the Intervention series, Intervention, Vicious Cycle, and Downfall. And I just looked these up today. They're from 2009 to 2012. So you may or may not have read them. They have new covers, but they have been out there before. So those are all new from Terry Blackstock. Patricia Bradley, she's another suspense series writer. This is a new series for her called Standoff, set in the Natchez Trail in Mississippi, I believe. I hadn't read her before. I read this one. It's suspense. It's not overly scary, but definitely has some suspense. A woman who is following in her father's footsteps and wants to become a trail police, like a national parkway police. So Standoff, Patricia Bradley. Remember Me, sequel to Shades of Light, has not yet come out, so we don't have that one to show you. But Sharon Garlow Brown has become a well-loved author. Wanda Brunstetter, The Crow's Call, and book 2 is out. I don't have it yet, but we have seen it, The Mockingbird's Song. So this is her newest series, Amish Greenhouse Mystery from Wanda Brunstetter. Davis Bunn, Unscripted. Line producer Danny Bird is well known in Hollywood for being someone who gets things done on time and under budget. But when his reputation takes a beating after his partner and former best friend makes off with their investors' money, Danny has but one chance to redeem himself and restore his ruined career. LA lawyer Megan Pierce has sacrificed years of her life proving herself to her impossible bosses, only to find herself disgusted at their snobbery and their specious business practices. When an opportunity to actually make a difference comes her way, she knows how to grab it. She has to grab it, even though she's not entirely clear what it is. Danny and Megan are each other's best hope for redemption. So, Unscripted. Morgan Bussey, this is the 3rd in her series, Cry of the Raven. Morgan was a Newtonian for a short while. She has now moved back to, I think, Oregon. But her books are critically acclaimed. They've been nominated for several awards, and they are fantasy, but Ravenwood Saga, but I've heard nothing but good things about those. So Morgan Bussey. Linda Byler, Hope Deferred, an Amish Romance, and Love in Unlikely Places, an Amish Romance. As far as I can tell, these do not have to be read together. They are standalones from Linda Byler. I'm trying to remember that anybody can watch these videos, so I have to be careful giving my opinions about some things, but let me know if you want more opinions. Amanda Cabot, Out of the Embers, Mesquite Springs, Book 1. So a historical, let's see, Texas Hill Country, 1850s, Texas Hill Country, 1850s, Out of the Embers. Becoming Mrs. Lewis, we had this one last year in a hardcover. It has since come out in paperback. This is the story of C.S. Lewis and Joy Davidman Lewis, who he eventually married. I did not know their love story. It's been made into a movie, but I hadn't seen that for a long time. But they wrote letters back and forth. They were kind of pen pals, and then she ended up moving to England. But this is a beautiful story of how they met and how she became Mrs. Lewis. And this one is an expanded edition, so it's got some extra stuff in the back, which is kind of cool. There's that word. Christy Cameron, Painted Castle. I sold that one yesterday, so I don't have that one to show you. That's the third in her Castle series, and it is a triple timeline, so you definitely have to have your head on when you're reading the book, but it is well worth it if you hang in there. So Painted Castle by Christy Cameron. The Gilded Lady, Elizabeth Camden, Hope and Glory, Book 2. The first one was The Spice King, I believe. And this is the Gilded Age of Washington, D.C. time period. Again, I've heard good things about Elizabeth Camden. I have not read her myself. Melody Carlson, Happy Camper. This is one I'm going to let Carol tell you about. So she will let you know what she thought of it. It's just a fun little book by the cover, but we'll check in with Carol and then be right back.
Okay. This next book, The Happy Camper by Melody Carlson. If you need a fun read to read, it's definitely the book to get. Dylan Michaels is a gal, and she leaves her former career and heads off to Oregon to her grandfather's farm. And she just needed to get away from everything, and she discovers her grandfather's old vintage camper trailer. And so she decides to refurbish she's going to redo the whole camper. And so that was kind of the fun part, because she was learning all about campers and everything. And so by the time I got done with the book, I wanted to go get my own and redo it. So it's just, Melody Carlson just writes some very fun books.
Thanks, Carol. Okay, Robin Carroll, Dead Silence, clearly suspense, and it's a contemporary suspense book by Robin Carroll. The End of the Magi, kind of a different book by Patrick Carr. Centuries before the Magi arrived in Bethlehem, a prophecy sets a young Magus on his path. Following his vision of the coming Messiah, the prophet Daniel calls forth a select group of men who will count down the calendar until the arrival of Israel's promised king. Centuries later, as the day draws near, Myrad, a young Magi acolyte, flees for his life when the adoptive father and others are slain by a ruthless Parthian queen. With every day that passes, the calendar creeps closer to the coming Messiah, and over everything shines the dream of a star that Myrad can't forget, and the promise that the world will never be the same. So The End of the Magi, kind of a different take on biblical fiction. The Tea Chest by Heidi Chiavaroli. We've done her, not this one, but we did another one of her books for Novel Thinkers. Very well done. This is a dual timeline, American Revolution, 1773 Boston, and then present day. So it deals with the Boston Tea Party in the past, and then the present day is the first woman trying to become a Navy SEAL, and the correlation of the two women and what they're going through, even though they are centuries apart. I really enjoyed this one. Heidi does a great job with her historical and weaving together two different timelines. The Socialite, and I'm not going to be able to say this last name, Janelle Czyzelski. Glamour, treachery, and romance collide when an English socialite throws herself into the dangerous arms of Nazi-occupied Paris. So World War II. Turn the page. Amy Clifton, Bake Shop and Farm Stand, Amish Marketplace 1 and 2. For those of you who are Amish lovers, Amish novel lovers. And Amy Clifton usually has several novella collections as well, so we didn't put those down, but if that's something that your readers would like, then that is something to look into as well. Okay, Colleen Coble, One Little Lie. This is the first book, and soon to come is 2 Reasons to Run, Pelican Harbor series. Colleen is a favorite around here. Her suspense are very popular. It started with One Little Lie, but Jane Hardy will do everything in her power to uncover the truth in this gripping new romantic suspense. So Colleen Coble. Mary Connolly, Aiming for Love and Women of Sunlight. These look like Robin Hood. Hope Mountain. It's in the mountains. Southwestern Colorado. Definitely historical. So it's like three different sisters, so I'm guessing each book is a different sister. Aiming for Love is book 1, and then Woman of Sunlight. Woman in the Green Dress. This is on my list to read. T. Cooper. A cursed opal, a gnarled family tree, and a sinister woman in a green dress emerge in the aftermath of World War I. And this is from award-winning Australian novelist T. Cooper. So, new to our bookstore and our bookshelves, but she obviously has been around in Australia. We have another Australian author coming up. Actually, a couple. Caudill Cassette also writes biblical fiction, like Flames in the Night, Cities of Refuge, and I can tell you she is one. I have a couple of readers who really love biblical fiction, and Tessa Afshar, Misu Andrews, and Caudill Cassette are at the top of their list. So if they could write faster, that would be really helpful for these people because they want to read them. So this is book 4 in this series, Cities of Refuge. Sean Curry, Swords of Silence. If you're looking for books that may appeal a little bit more to men, We all have to do what we must to survive. Where once new ideas and beliefs were accepted, now the country's military dictator, the shogun, is shutting his country down to any outside influences. Father Joaquim Martinez, who left Portugal to make Hizen province, Japan, his home, has been quietly tending to the lives of his villagers, but everything is about to be thrown into turmoil as the shogun has outlawed Martinez's beliefs. Those who won't recant or accept banishment face a death sentence. With the threat of the massacre looming and the shogun's samurai closing in, Father Martinez must decide if he is willing to risk everything to save those he has sworn to protect. So Japanese samurai type. Before I Call You Mine, sorry for the close-up, this is our Novel Thinkers book club for this month by Nicole Deese, and this is a contemporary romance, but it deals with some heavier topics of adoption and decisions that Lauren Bailey must make. So Lauren is a teacher, she's a single woman, and she's kind of given up right now on finding love for herself. She's in the process of adopting a child from China and has realized that that is what she's called to do right now. And in this process, and this is really true, if you're adopting a child from China, you either, as a woman, you have to be single or you have to be married for 2 years. So there's a gap in there that your adoption cannot go through. And Lauren, the character, is fine with that. She understands there's no one special in her life until there's a new substitute teacher across the hall at her school who captures her attention. And Joshua is a pretty fun guy, and they strike a friendship, and pretty soon she realizes, as her adoption is continuing, she's gonna have to make a choice. And so that's what this is about. It is a laugh out loud in places. It could make you tear up and cry in places. I really liked this book, and I'm excited to talk to Nicole next Thursday night. We will meet here at 7, and then we talk with Nicole at 7:30, hopefully on Facebook Live, so you can watch it if you can't make it. But Before I Called You Mine, recommend it for libraries, for personal, and it's our Novel Thinkers Book Club book this month. So that means it's $10 right now. Ted Dekker, The Girl Behind the Red Rope, is getting ready to come out in paperback. We've had it in hardcover. I don't have it to show you right now, but if you're a Ted Dekker fan, then know that that's coming soon in paperback. Jennifer Delamere, Line by Line. This is historical book from a new to us author. She has won some Rita Award. So Love Along the Wires is a first in the series. Lauren Denton, The Summer House. Her books are very good. They're contemporary. I would say women's lit is probably the category that they fit into. Not necessarily a lot of Christian content, but good, clean content, and always beautiful covers. The Summer House.
Okay. The Summer House by Lauren Denton. And I found this to be, it was a fun read. She ends up waking up one morning, her husband leaves her a goodbye note and divorce papers. And so she has to figure out what she's going to do with her life. So she sees on a flyer on the bulletin board, I don't know where, but anyway, she answers this ad at a retirement village for a hairstylist. And so what happens after that is just kind of comical in a lot of ways. And so I just found it to be another kind of a fun read, nothing too difficult. So if you need something else, you want to go on a trip, you want to go on this is a good book to read for that too. In fact, what I said is brew some sweet tea and enjoy Lily's journey to finding herself and a certain single dad who is a shripper.
Oh, a stripper?
Shripper.
Sorry. The Yellow Lantern by Angie Dickin. This is a book that's there's a series of books called True Colors by Barber Bookhouse, book publishers, and they are all true American crimes, historical stories of American crime. This one happens to be 1824 Body Snatcher. So The Yellow Lantern. There might be a couple more in our list, but I've read a couple of them and they're very good. They're definitely suspense, some more than others. Blizzard Bride is from a series called The Daughters of the Mayflower, where it started at the Mayflower and is coming up to contemporary times. So this is now 1888, The Blizzard Bride. Every book is by a different author. A Mosaic of Wings by Kimberly Duffy. Nora Shipley has one goal: to carry on the legacy of her father by taking over the scientific journal he started. To that end, she's fought to be taken seriously among her male classmates and graduate as valedictorian of Cornell's entomology program. When pressures to settle down rise to a fever pitch, she impulsively joins a research expedition to Kodaikanal, India, to prove herself in the field and win a scholarship. So it takes place in India. I don't know. I don't think it's contemporary, but it doesn't say time. It's one that I have taken home to read but I haven't had time to read it yet. Amanda Dykes' Set the Stars Alight. I have not read this one yet, but we did her other book. Can't think of the name of it right now. Whose Waves These Are, sorry. She is a beautiful writer, very literary, beautiful descriptions, and she just tells an amazing story. And this is a dual timeline in London and then contemporary East Sussex. So, Set the Stars Alight. I would recommend it just based on her first book. Endgame by Rachel Dillon. It's a new suspense. Each new clue, every crime brings them closer to discovering the end game. Lynette Eason is a suspense author, and this is another one that I'm going to let Carol tell you about. So we will go over to Carol. Okay, Jerry Eicher, the Amish school teacher. Amish, and Jerry Eicher's been around for a while, so I would say there would be not a lot of surprises in this. If you like Jerry Eicher, you should like that. Children of the Stars, Mario Escobar, just came in this week, so I haven't had a lot of time to look at it. August 1942, Jacob and Moses Stein, two young Jewish brothers, are staying with their aunt in Paris amid the Nazi occupation. The boys' parents, well-known German playwrights, have left the brothers in their aunt's care until they can find safe harbor for their family. But before the Steins can reunite, a great and terrifying roundup occurs. This inspiring novel, now available for the first time in English, demonstrates the power of family and the endurance of the human spirit, even through the darkest moments in human history. And I forget the nationality of the author. But Children of the Stars, Mario Escobar. Until I Met You by Tari Ferris is book 2 in a series that is coming soon. Any book that we listed that is coming soon should be here in September, the beginning of September. Otherwise, it gets moved to next year. So, the Restoring Heritage series. The Dating Charade by Melissa Ferguson. I do have a few at $5. Actually, I have several at $5. This is one that you're going to have to trust me. It's a contemporary romance, and for some reason covers like this don't sell real well around here, but it was a really cute story. But it also deals with some deeper things: foster care, adoption, having a family member who is addicted to drugs. So the cover can be a little bit misleading, but it's two people who kind of accidentally end up on a dating site and accidentally find each other, and both of them are hiding children, foster children, and others that have shown up from each other. So again, I recommended it. I enjoyed it. It was a cute story, but it deals with some heavier topics as well. And another laugh out loud moment. Stories That Bind Us by Susie Finkbeiner, and surprise alert, this is our Novel Thinkers for September. I have read this book already and really enjoyed it. It's set in the 60s, which is kind of a fun, different take on historical, I guess. Hard to believe 60s are historical, but this is about a brand new widow, Betty Sweet, whose husband dies unexpectedly. They do not have any children, and she is not quite sure what to do with her life. But her estranged sister shows up with a little boy who needs some love, and they move in with her. He happens to be biracial, and so there's that mix in there as well. But it's just about the power of story. I think you're really going to like it, and I'm excited to share that with everyone next month for our September Novel Thinkers. Stories That Bind Us by Susie Finkbeiner. Suzanne Woods has been busy. So Suzanne Woods Fisher writes Amish, and then she also writes contemporary. So she's had 2 new books out in the Deacon's Family series, Stitches in Time and 2 Steps Forward. So those are both her Amish books. And then this is a contemporary one, On a Coastal Breeze. So Suzanne Woods Fisher. And that's from the Three Sisters Island series. Rachel Fordham. It doesn't look like I have that one right now. I've really enjoyed her other books. I haven't read this newest one yet. They're historical, probably late 1800s, and I think you will like that one. So sorry, I don't have that one to show you. Laura France, Uncommon Woman. Laura France, I have not read this one yet, but I have read a couple of her other ones, and I have enjoyed them. I've heard good things about this one. Unflinching and plain-spoken, Tessa Swan is not your typical 18th century woman. Born and bred on the western Virginia frontier, along with her 5 brothers, she is a force to be reckoned with. Quiet and courageous Clay Tygart is not your typical 18th century man. Raised by Lenape Indians, he returns a hero from the 7 Years' War to the fort that bears his name, bringing with him Tessa's long-lost friend, Keturah, a redeemed Indian captive like himself. Determined to avoid any romantic entanglements as the fort commander, Clay remains aloof when he encounters the lovely Tessa. But when she is taken captive by the tribe Clay left, his hand and his heart are forced, leading him to one very private and one very public reckoning, An Uncommon Woman. That one sounds good. Kathleen Fuller, The Innkeeper's Bride, here. And then Amish Generation, that's a novella collection of 4 short stories. So those are all by her. And then this one, I do have a few copies at $5. That's a first come, first serve thing if you are a Kathleen Fuller fan. Anne Gabhart, An Appalachian Summer. I've enjoyed the books that I've read with her, and I love Appalachia. This is 1953, Louisville, Kentucky. So I haven't read this one, but I think I might have to add it to my list. Anne Gabhart. Elizabeth Goddard. I think this might be the one that Carol's going to tell you about now that I did that. Always Look Twice and Don't Keep Silent by Elizabeth Goddard.
So, Elizabeth Goddard, if you have not tried her, she's similar if you've read a Dee Henderson or a Danny Petrie book. She writes kind of similar to that style. And this is actually the second book, Always Look Twice. And the first one was Never Let Go. And the third one is Don't Keep Silent. And I have not read this third one yet, but I have read the first and the second one. And each book kind of highlights one of the McCade brothers. And in this one, it's Heath McCade. And in this one, it's Liam McCade. And they are always have to uncover some kind of a mystery. And so it's not real heavy, but it's, I don't know, it's not real light either. But anyway, so it says justice lies just on the other side of fear. So, but I really do like Elizabeth Goddard, and especially these kinds of books that she writes. So.
Leslie Gould, Piecing It All Together, Plain Patterns, an Amish fiction. Oh, Shelley Shepherd Gray, also Amish. 2, 3, and 4 in the Walnut Creek series. So Shelley Shepherd Gray. She wrote some historical suspense, but I haven't seen anything from that for a while. So Love and a Little White Lie. This is a brand new author to us and a brand new book. There's a lot of irony in hitting rock bottom. After a heartbreak leaves her reeling, January Sanders is open to anything, including moving into a cabin on her aunt's wedding venue property and accepting a temporary position at her aunt's church, despite being a lifelong skeptic of faith. Choosing to keep her doubts to herself, she's determined to give her all to supporting Grace Communities, no relation to ours, overworked staff while helping herself move on. What she doesn't count on is meeting the church's handsome and charming guitarist, It's a match set for disaster, and yet January has no ability to stay away, even if it means pretending to have faith in a God she doesn't believe in. Only this time, keeping her secret isn't as easy as she thought it would be, especially when she's constantly running into her aunt's landscape architect, who seems to know everything about her past and present sins and makes no apologies about pushing her to deal with feelings she'd rather keep buried. Torn between two worlds that cannot coexist, can January find the healing that's eluded her, or will her resistance to the truth ruin any chance of happiness? So, Love and a Little White Lie. Veiled in Smoke. Oh, I enjoyed this one. Jocelyn Green, my first Jocelyn Green book. This is a new series, the Windy City Saga. This is set in the time of the Chicago fire. It's also set in a bookstore. The young girl and her family run a bookstore, which is subsequently burned. But she is a painter, an artist, and starts selling her paintings to help make money. The only thing I thought in this book is that she makes a fairly quick recovery, learning from getting burned on her right hand to being able to paint with her left hand. And I thought that was a little bit unrealistic, but I'm not a painter, and so maybe you can switch really quick. But I really enjoyed the book. It was a time period and a event that I haven't read a lot about, so I would encourage you to read Jocelyn Green. Oh. Michelle Greek, The House at the End of the Moor. She's on the run from her past. He's on the run from the law, but no one can run forever. Or can they? Robin Jones Gunn, Being Known, Haven Makers #2. This is a newer series, contemporary. If you're familiar with her Christie series, Christie is in this book, but it is not about Christie. So it's about a group of women who have become friends as adults. Being Known. Hannibal, Chasing the White Lion. In Talia's world, everyone has an angle and no one escapes unscathed. This is book 2 in that series. Irene Hannon is another one who writes both suspense and romance, or writes 2 different genres, I should say. Irene Hannon, Dark Ambitions, book number 3, and then Starfish Pier, a Hope Harbor novel. These, I believe, are standalone, even though they are probably around the same city or same time. This is a series that goes together. Lindsay Harrell, Joy of Falling. This is about 2 sisters-in-law whose husbands both died in the same tragic accident. Their husbands were grand adventurers and set off and did all sorts of what I would consider scary things, and they were in a deep sea dive accident and died, and both of the women face their grief in very different ways. One has children, one does not, and that affects how they grieve. But they find out that their husbands, before they died, had entered a extreme adventure race in New Zealand, and it has to be run by either the people who did it or their family members. So they decide to run the race in their husband's stead. And so they moved to New Zealand. Thankfully, money is no issue for one of them. Moved to New Zealand about 6 weeks ahead of time to train, and it's just their training and going through. It's an interesting story about grief and how it affects different people in different ways. And by the end of the race, they had almost kind of flipped in how they were, or at least where they were in that grief process. So I've enjoyed Lindsay Harrell's books. She does a lot of traveling in there, and a really good description of where you're visiting. So since you can't go to New Zealand right now, you could go in this book. Trader's Pawn by Lisa Harris, a suspense. This is a standalone, it looks like. Join the Hunt for the Truth and a Traitor, Lisa Harris. How Sweet It Is by Robin Hatcher, just a sweet contemporary romance. She's very popular around here. This one has to do with a baker, which also seems to be really popular both in general market and now. Rachel Hauck, the Fifth Avenue Story Society. Rachel Hauk, I have a few at $5, but I don't know how many I have. This is a contemporary story about 5 strangers who all receive a mysterious invitation to this Fifth Avenue library, and they all show up wondering who's invited them, and they can't quite figure it out, but they decide to stick with it. They come back week after week and just kind of talk to each other. They're desperate for communication, and it's very interesting how they all end up intertwining. It is lightly connected to The Writing Desk. If you have read that, there are some characters in here in the past that you will recognize their names, but you don't have to have read that book for this one to make sense. So Rachel Hauk, Fifth Avenue Story Society. Jody Headland, 2 more books in her Bride series, Runaway Bride and A Bride of Convenience, and there's another one, Almost a Bride, that's coming out very soon. So there will be 4 books in this series by Jody Headland. Historical, The Bride Ships is that series. Okay, Storm's Promise by Jelaine Hebert. This is book 3 in her series, Another Spring. Jelaine is a local Kansas author. She is well loved. She is an excellent speaker if you ever can have speakers come back to your church again. And all of her books are very fun. They're set in Kansas during the 1800s, and highly recommend Jelaine's books if you don't have them already. The Gray Chamber is another book in that True Colors series that I talked about earlier. I have not read this one. I read the first book, The White City, that was by Grace Hitchcock, and I really liked it. So this one is on Blackwell Island, New York. A hospital was built to prevent its patients from ever leaving. So 1887, Gray Chamber. 2 books from a new suspense author, probably would appeal to men and to women. A shepherd's suspense novel. John Cross is a small-town pastor bent on leading his flock to follow God's calling. He's not the sort of man you'd expect to have a checkered past. But the truth is, this shepherd was once a wolf, an assassin for the CIA. When John decided to follow Christ, he put that work behind him, determined to do penance for all the lives he took, pledging to never kill again. Now his deadly past has caught up to him as a vengeful terrorist swears to take him out for good. All John's secrets are laid bare, and he must face his demons and discover whether a man can truly change. Can he keep his vow, even when his congregation and the brave woman he's learning to care for are caught in the crossfire? So that's the first one, and then Cross Shadow is the second one. And they look like they are connected. Both of them had John Cross in it. So King's Shadow and Daughter of Cana from Angela Hunt, another biblical fiction. She writes a lot of other things too, but biblical fiction. So this is the End, Silent Years, a novel of King Herod's court. And then this is Jerusalem Road, book 1. So the end of one series and the beginning of another. Lake Season and Carolina Breeze from Denise Hunter. Another simple or sweet contemporary romance. So light reading if you need a little bit of something to relax with while you're reading. Pursuit of Home is the end of this, the Haven Manor series for Christy Hunter, and then a new series, Vying for the Viscount. Set in moving to England from India. For Hudson, the newly titled Viscount Stilden, moving to England from India, where he was born and raised, was already an arduous enough endeavor. When he learns the fate of the racing empire he inherited along with his title depends on him getting in the good graces of another stable owner, he's even more at a loss. So, Vying for the Viscount. Kelly Irvin, again, kind of a split genre. Amish, Peace in the Valley, and then Closer Than She Knows. So, very different books. Make sure you know which one you're getting. Amish suspense. Thankfully, the covers are a pretty good indicator. Start With Me by Kara Isaac. I don't have that one right now. That is a contemporary romance. Kara is a New Zealand author, and that's a self-published one, and I wasn't able to get it here in time for this, but I have read her books and I have enjoyed them. Okay, guys, thanks for hanging in there with me. Melissa Jaggers disappeared on me. Oh, here it is. Pretending to Wed. I love Melissa Jaggers, and she's going to talk to us in just a minute. She's one of our guest authors that's going to talk to you guys. But I just want to tell you, she now lives in the area, and yeah, her books are amazing. This is probably one of my new favorites of hers. It's set in Montana. Sorry, I should know. Wyoming? Frontier Vows is set in the North, Midwest, North, I don't know. But it's about a woman and a man who end up choosing to get married as a business adventure purely. They both need that. But you know, that pesky thing called love just sometimes gets in the way. So Melissa is not afraid to go places in her books that other people don't. It's a historical, but it deals with some very contemporary issues and deals with them in very well. So I'm gonna turn it over to Melissa to tell you hello, and then I'll be back.
Hello to all the librarians that are attending Faith and Life's Librarian Day. I'm in my car because my kids are noisy and all the air conditioning units in the neighborhood are on. My name's Melissa Jaggers, and I'm so thrilled to be with you. I am so thankful for bookstores and churches that offer places for people to thumb through books and look through books and have people around that can recommend them as well. A personal recommendation is always the highest recommendation, and I know because I could sell Redeeming Love all day. Or my previous series from this series started with A Heart Most Certain, and it's probably the book that gets the most emails from readers. It was a book of my heart, and I often get people that email me, and this one came last week, and it says, "It's great how there are no coincidences when you're a Christian. God has been really speaking to me while reading your book. Recently, I've been reluctantly helping an older lady in our church who's needed help because of an operation, but her house is pretty awful as she's a hoarder. And you helped me not to forget that one of the most important needs is friendship and spending time with people. Thanks for spending the time writing. As a young adult, I was rather taken aback when talking to some very earnest Christians who explained that Christian fiction was a no-no. I'm glad you thought differently. And I'm glad that you as church librarians think differently too and have fiction on your bookshelves." When she had mentioned that the person she was helping was a hoarder, I had just gotten someone who reviewed and recommended Cynthia Ruchti's book, Afraid of the Light. And it deals with a lady who's dealing with her mother's past. She was a hoarder and wasn't able to help her, and so she's a psychologist and helping those in the present. And so I had given that recommendation to the lady in response to her email, and she said, "Thanks for the book recommendation. It's very readable. It gave great insight and lots of good food for thought." So that's my recommendation. That's not my book. Last but not least, I thought I would show you my new book. This is Pretending to Wed. I have a hero who's an amputee and a heroine who has carpal tunnel. She's also an inventor. And so both of these people are dealing with their limitations, and not only in the goals that they want, but also in falling in love. Bethany's been kind enough to have that in her bookstore too and on her bookshelves, and I recently saw that she read it, and so she could give you more information if you came into her store and asked about it. And I'm just so thrilled that I was able to come today and say hi, and my time is up. Thank you.
Jessica Kate, A Girl's Guide to the Outback. This is another one of those with the covers that don't always do very well around here, but I've heard good things about Jessica. And this is a contemporary romance. So, Girl's Guide to the Outback. Kings Falling by Ronnie Kindig. The Book of the Wars, Book 2. Book of the Wars, yeah, Book of the Wars, Book 2. Suspense, and hers are more adventure, not, I'm sorry guys, sometimes I just can't think of those words. Otherworldly. I still don't know what that word is, but that's what it is. And I've heard good things about her. Karen Kingsbury, Someone Like You. This is her most recent book. It's still just in hardcover. I don't remember when it will come out in paperback. It'll be a little bit as far as, in December, it says on the paper. I have heard that this one is a tearjerker, but it is Karen Kingsbury, so you should expect that. It deals with adoption. And some other things. Interview with the Antichrist. His hour has come. This is a fiction book. To whom it may concern, this is my personal record of the events of 2030 to 2037. The world is in chaos, and if you're reading this, it means you've survived. Good luck. So, a little bit of a heavier topic there. Jane Kirkpatrick is not here. That one is coming soon. Something Worth Doing. The novel of an early suffragist. And Jane Kirkpatrick's books are almost always real people that are not very well known, and she takes real women and then takes and writes their story for us. So I've always enjoyed that. Julie Clausen, Bridge to Belle Island. That isn't a series, I believe. And then she has a Christmas one, an Ivy Hill Christmas, that will be here soon. Sarah Ladd, The Thief of Llanwyn Manor. We have a few at $5. England, 1818. Okay, Solid Grounds Coffee Company is one that Carol is going to tell you about. It's a third in a series of the Saturday Night Supper Club, contemporary romance. Very fun.
Yeah, the Solid Grounds Coffee Company. This is the third book in Carla Laureano's series, the Supper Club series. And this one is where Annalyn Sanchez, she needs a change in her life too. So anyway, she's at a crossroads, and she was asked to cover up a client's misdeeds, and she just didn't feel like that was something she could do. So she leaves that job, and then Mr. Brian comes in, and he's also looking for a change in his life. And so he buys a coffee bean farm down in Colombia. And so he talks her into going into the coffee business. And it is quite interesting how they end up doing that. And the characters from the other two books kind of have small roles in this one. So they all kind of are in there together. But this one focuses on Annalyn and Brian and their coffee company.
And if you like Carla Laureano, this is the third book in a trilogy that has been a long time coming. The first two books came out several years ago from a different publisher, and then she never wrote the third one. The books were picked up by a new publisher, and now she has finally finished this series under Scottish Stars, and it's the MacDonald Family Trilogy. So you can get the whole series now. Beverly Lewis, The Stone Wall is brand new. It should be coming soon, but we don't have it. But you can picture a Beverly Lewis book, and that's what you're getting. Lulu's Cafe is T.I. Lowe. I've been seeing a lot of her name places. It's contemporary romance. They're little mass market books. I haven't read one yet, but I'm very intrigued. So, T.I. Lowe, Lulu's Cafe. If anyone has read it, leave a comment below and let us know if you liked it. The Key to Everything by Valerie Fraser Luce. Promise me you'll never come back here, Peyton. It's too much. It's just way too much. Peyton Cabot's 15th year will be a painful and transformative one. His father, the heroic but reluctant head of the moneyed Savannah family, has come home from World War II, a troubled vet, drowning his demons in bourbon and distancing himself from his son. A tragic accident shows Peyton the depth of his parents' devotion to each other, but interrupts his own budding romance with the girl of his dreams. Struggling to cope with a young life upended, Peyton makes a daring decision. He will retrace a journey his father took at 15, riding his bicycle from St. Augustine, Florida, all the way to Key West. Part Declaration of Independence, part search for self, Peyton's journey will bring him more than he ever could have imagined, namely the key to his unknowable father, a longed-for reunion, and a calling that will shape the rest of his life. The key to everything. Okay, Charles Martin is one of our favorites around here, and this book is no exception. I have read it, but I'm going to let Carol tell you about it. I hope this gets made into a movie. It's a pretty incredible story. Deals with sex trafficking and some heavy topics, but in true Charles Martin fashion, it keeps you glued to the edge of your seat. So here's Carol to tell you a little bit more.
Now, The Waterkeeper by Charles Martin, who is one of my more favorite authors, and he is a master storyteller, and he gets very detailed about his books. This one is this Murphy Shepherd. He is a groundskeeper at a church that has no parishioners, and he ends up in getting pulled deeper and deeper into the dark and dangerous world of modern day slavery. And it happens in Florida, and it happens on a boat. And yes, I did pull out my map so I could follow. So I could follow however they were going down the coast of Florida, because I've never been to Florida, so I couldn't figure out, well, where are they at? And are they in the middle? Are they at the end? So anyway, so I kind of went on my own little trip in Florida by getting on the map. And it's a love story and a heartrending search for freedom, and the ending will surprise you, but I will not tell you what the ending is, because it would ruin it. So, but you just need to read it. I mean, you really need to get into Charles Martin. That's all I gotta say about that.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, The Brightest of Dreams by Susan Ann Mason. He crossed an ocean to reunite his family, but meeting her makes him question everything. Canadian historical fiction. Rachel McMillan, The London Restoration. I just love this cover. I want that hat. Madly in love, Diana Foyle and Brent Somerville married in London as the bombs of World War II dropped on their beloved city. Without time for a honeymoon, the couple spent the next 4 years apart. Diana, an architectural historian, took a top-secret intelligence post at Bletchley Park. Brent, a professor of theology at King's College, believed his wife was working for the Foreign Office as a translator when he was injured in an attack on the European front. Now that the war is over, the Somervilles' long-anticipated reunion is strained by everything they cannot speak of. Diana's extensive knowledge of London churches could help bring down a Russian agent named Eternity. She's eager to help M16 thwart communist efforts to start a new war, but because of the Official Secrets Act, Diana can't tell Brent the truth about her work. Determined to save their marriage and rebuild the city they call home, Diana and Brent's love is put to the ultimate test as they navigate the rubble of war and the ruins of broken trust. The London Restoration. Okay, The Blue Cloak by Shannon McNear. This is one of the True Colors books that I have read. It is set in the 1797 in the Appalachian Mountains in Kentucky and Tennessee. This is a true crime. They have, in the back it tells a little bit more about it, but it was a little hard to read. It's about a woman who gets married to a guy that showed up in the town. Not very long, he and his brother showed up, and he kind of wooed her and married her, and she comes to find out that they are not really nice people. They have 3 wives between the 2 of them. They go up and down and have killing sprees in the Appalachian Mountains. And the story is really about her friend who is kind of on a journey to find her. She knows something is wrong. So anyway, I enjoyed the book, but there were parts that were hard to read. And yeah, thankful for modern day law enforcement and people that keep us safe from people like this, and that we don't live in mountains where it's easy to hide. And anyway, so 1797, and the blue cloak just gives it a color. I don't know that it had much to do with the book, but it's kind of fun to have that to tie it in. Dead End is the third in the series from Nancy Mell, the Kaylee Quinn Profiler series. She is an FBI profiler, and this is the final one of that series. I read the first one and enjoyed it. I haven't had time to read the next two at this point. Susan Meisner, Last Year of the War. This one is not necessarily a Christian novel, but Susan Meisner we've had other books of hers before. She wrote one that last year I talked about of the Spanish flu of 1918, which we know really wasn't a Spanish flu, but I read that right before all of this started. So anyway, this is the Last Year of the War. In 1943, Elise Sontag is a typical American teenager from Iowa, aware of the war but distanced from its reach. Then her father, a legal U.S. resident for nearly 2 decades, is suddenly arrested on suspicion of being a Nazi sympathizer. Family is sent to an internment camp in Texas, where behind the armed guards and barbed wire, Elise feels stripped of everything beloved and familiar, including her own identity. So, World War II. Misleading Miss Verity. This is Regency Bride's Daughter of Ainsley. So English Regency. Judith Miller, a Kansas author, A Single Spark. Historical, Washington Arsenal, Civil War time period. Airborne. I don't know if that one was already scheduled to come out. I assume it was, by Diane Mills. Pub date is coming right up, so I don't have that one to show you, but that sounds kind of accurate and probably a little bit more realistic suspense than what we want it to be. Airborne. Elizabeth Musser, When I Close My Eyes. This is a contemporary story told from 3 different people's point of view. The cover does not really give away how heavy a topic this is. It deals with depression. It deals with, there's a murder attempt. It's a very calm, peaceful cover. But the very first chapter is an assassination attempt on a very well-known author. The assassination attempt is not successful, but she's in a coma. So the story is told from the assassin's point of view, the daughter of the woman in a coma, and the woman in a coma. So I really thoroughly enjoyed it, but just know you're getting a much deeper book than you might be expecting. But I recommend it. It really is eye-opening about depression, which is not a topic that's touched, especially how she touches on it in this book. And I think she does an excellent job. So, When I Close My Eyes. A Dream Within a Dream. This is a strong suspense. This is number 3 in the Coffee and Hill novel series by Mag Napa. And those are pretty suspenseful. More Than We Remember by Christina Suzanne Nelson. This was a Novel Thinkers book for a couple months ago. Contemporary, told from the point of view of 3 different women who were all affected by a specific accident in town and some other things, but how their lives intertwine and how the things that we remember may not be as accurate as we think they are, and how that affects how we deal with other people. So More Than We Remember, that was a highly recommend from our Novel Thinkers group.
More Than We Remember. This was one of our book club picks for this year. Mm-hmm. And there's an accident, and this is by Christine Suzanne Nelson. And there's a car accident, and it involves one of the there's 3 women, and it involves one of the women's husband, and then we have Emilia Cruz, who's a deputy, and she is bound and determined she's going to nail this guy for the accident. And then there's Brienne, who is kind of in the middle of both of them. Anyway, these three women have to figure out how they are going to deal with the things that life has brought to them. And it is kind of a surprising ending as well, because it doesn't end like you think it's going to. So, but that's the beauty of books.
This is book 2 and 3, When I Meet In the Cradle Lies and When I Meet You. These are set in Ski Town in Colorado. They are contemporary, not too heavy. I read the first one. I haven't finished these other two, but I thought they were a good, simple, again, not too heavy topic. I gotta spin my cart. Guys, we're on the back side of the cart. We did good. 2 shelves to go. Okay, Taryn Oakley is from Wichita. She's a teacher in Halstead, I believe. And this is her first book, Dreams of July, contemporary romance. It's a sweet story about a recent widow, and her struggle to regain her life and get reconnected with just living. It's set in a small town in Texas, and I hope when we can, we will have her in for a book signing sometime. She's real sweet, the author is, and I would recommend this book, and I heard she's already working on a second one. So Dreams of July by Taryn Oakley, and there are strong Christian themes in here, so that was really nice to see. Carrie Stewart Parks, Relative Silence. Hers are very suspenseful. Forensic artist Carrie Stewart Parks is a forensic artist herself, so she writes very realistically, and pretty strong suspense there. A Long Time Coming by Robin Pearson. This, I am hoping, will be a Novel Thinkers book in the future. I'm planning on it. I have a special of this for 50% off for you guys. This is a contemporary book about an African-American family and the generational secrets that are shared between, there's a grandmother and a granddaughter who are very alike in personality, very strong, and they end up living together for a short time. And grandma has a lot of secrets that she doesn't really talk about. She's a very disciplined and strong woman with not a lot of, she doesn't show a lot of emotion, but as her granddaughter is living with her, she finds out she's dying of cancer, and she's ready to start talking. So a lot of the stories are told in letters to her children. I really enjoyed it, and I think that you guys would enjoy it too. Beatrice Agnew is the main character, and you guys will love her. She's quite the character. So anyway, A Long Time Coming by Robin Pearson. This is her first book, and it will not hopefully be her last. Okay, Tracy Peterson. We know Tracy Peterson is very well, she writes a lot. What Comes My Way, Brookstone Brides #3. So that's third in that series. And then there's 2 books that have come out in a Willamette Brides series, all historical. And she's in a collection of novellas. Tracy Peterson, Karen Whitmire, Regina Jennings, and Jen Turano, Serving Up Love. So those are all historical. Oh, and then she's also written, wrong one, Forever Hidden, Treasures of Nome, Book 1, with Tracy Peterson and Kimberly Woodhouse, who have written a lot together. So if you're a Tracy Peterson fan, there is not a shortage of books for you to read. Crushing Depths is #2 in the Coastal Guardians books by Danny Petrie. And I have not ever read Danny Petrie, but I know that she is a well-loved suspense author. Fragments of Light, I just finished last week. Michelle Phoenix has written a couple of books, and both of them, they're different, but they're very, very good. This is about a woman who finds out she has cancer, and in the middle of her treatment, she meets an older lady who becomes a very fast friend and a very good encourager. At the end of her treatment, she gets quite the surprise from her husband, the younger lady, and that throws her life into a tailspin. But she has this older friend who she's leaning on, and the older friend finds out that her cancer is back. But before she dies, she has some unfinished business about finding a long lost father who came back from the war and kind of disappeared. And so they go on this trek to find the father. It's told in his perspective from letters in the past, and then contemporary. And what I like is that when it's his perspective, it's a different font, so it's very easy to see. This was a very good story. There's some depth to it. It deals with some heavier topics. Definitely deals with cancer and marriage issues. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. So again, I don't know, I'm tongue-tied, but I recommend it. Michelle Phoenix. I think I'm getting tired. Okay, Finding Lady Enderley, Joanna Davidson Politano. They're kind of mystery, but historical mystery, not like suspense, just simple mysteries. Raina Breton is a ragwoman in London's East End when a handsome stranger appears in a dark alley, offering her a glittering smile and a chance for adventure. Finding Lady Enderley. Flight Risk, Kara Putman. She writes contemporary legal thrillers, not as in scary thrillers, but as in intense suspense a little bit. This is about a woman who, let me remind myself, is an attorney. There's a group of friends in her books that there's 5 different women attorneys in Washington, D.C., and each book covers a different attorney. And she is hired to Samantha Daniels has worked hard to build her law practice, to surround herself with good friends, and to be loyal and to her troubled niece can always count on. But since her ex-husband's betrayal, she has trouble trusting anyone. Jet Glover's father committed suicide over a false newspaper report that ruined his reputation. Now a fierce champion of truth, Jet is writing the story of his journalism career, an international sex trafficking expose that will bring down the celebrity baseball player and the men closest to him, including Savannah's ex-husband. When Jet's story breaks, tragedy ensues. Then a commercial airline crashes, and one of Savannah's clients is implicated in the crash. Men connected to the scandal, including her ex, begin to die in mysterious circumstances, and Savannah's niece becomes an unwitting target. So they have to join forces to find the truth. Flight Risk. I really did enjoy that. I just forgot about it for a minute. Chasing Dreams is number 2 in Deb Rainey's newest Chandler Sisters series. It's about 3 different sisters who happen to be last name of Chandler. And I have a message for you from Deb Rainey, and she's going to tell you about the next book in this series that comes out soon. So here's Deb.
Hi there, I'm Deborah Rainey, and I'm coming to you today from my office in Missouri. My husband and I moved to Southeast Missouri just a year ago to be closer to our 2 daughters and 6 of our 10 grandchildren. We are loving exploring our new state and finding all the beauty that is here. We moved from Kansas, which is my home. I grew up on a farm in Kansas, and I will always be a little Kansas farm girl. But it's wonderful to be closer to a lot of our family here in Missouri. I am so excited that I get to be here and just share a little part of your Church Librarians Day. I was so excited when Bethany invited me to say a few words to you because we truly appreciate you so much. I'm so glad we're finding ways to get around this crazy world that we're living in right now. And if it has to be via a virtual conference, well, so be it. But again, I am so appreciative of all that you do, all you church librarians and all librarians and bookstore owners, so many people who make it possible for us authors to keep doing what we do. I'm very excited to share that I have a new book coming out in September. This book is the third book in the Chandler Sisters novel series. And the first book in that series, as you may know, is Reason to Breathe. Chasing Dreams is book 2. And Finding Wings will be out September 22nd. And I think it just might be my favorite book in the whole series. I'm very excited for it to come out, and I hope you will enjoy it. Again, I just want to say thank you, and I want to encourage you in what you are doing. I know it's been extra difficult in this time, but we are so grateful, my author friends and I, for what you do. And we just wish you all the best and all of God's blessings. Thanks again.
Thank you, Deb. I appreciate that. The next books on our list are from David Rawlings, The Camera Never Lies and Where the Road Bends. David is an Australian author who we Skyped with or talked with a few months ago for the Novel Thinkers. That was fun to hear him. And he likes to write, these are kind of allegory parables. So there's more than meets the eye in these stories. This one deals with marriage and this one deals with friendship in the outback. So The Camera Never Lies and Where the Road Bends.
And here we go. David Rawlings, Where the Road Bends. This is his third book. The first one was The Baggage Handler. The second one was The Camera Never Lies. This one is set in Australia. And it's about 4 college friends who had agreed after college that in 15 years they would
Meet back.
they would meet back together, but they would meet in Australia in the outback. And somebody had scoped something out, and so they are kind of on a camping trip in the outback of Australia. And I don't know, I struggled with it because I don't know what the outback of Australia looks like. And so for me, visualizing the outback was a little different, a little hard to do. But the friends all they have their own little personal journeys that they go on to, they have to figure some things out. And it's kind of like in his other 2 books, but I really like The Baggage Handler better. But, they can't write everything that I'm going to love. So anyway, but it is good, and I like David Rawlings. I actually am on his newsletter list, so I would just...
And he is Australian.
He is
We
Australian.
talked to
Oh,
him
yes.
for a book club.
Yes, he was one of our book club. We talked to him, especially on The Baggage Handler, and he has a very Australian accent, yes. So anyway, I would recommend that you at least try David Rawlings if you haven't already. Okay, I think that's all I have to say.
Okay, good job.
Literature and Lattes. This is a follow-up to Catherine Ray's other book, set in a bookstore, and I can't remember the name of it. Sorry. So this is about friends and a small town outside of Chicago. Steadfast Mercy by Ruth Reed. It's an Amish Mercies novel. And the newest from Joel Rosenberg, Jerusalem Assassin. Paperback is not until January of 21, so if you are interested in that, we do have some at 30% off, and this is the Marcus Riker novel number 3. Okay, I know Melissa already talked about this book earlier, and I'm going to have you listen to Cynthia here in just a minute, but this is one of my favorites, probably my most favorite recent read. I love Cynthia Ruchti books, and she is the sweetest lady. This is Afraid of the Light, and I'm going to let her tell you about what it's about, but I recommend this so much. You hear a book that's about hoarding and you think, why in the world would I want to read that? But she just has a way of making any subject, I think, interesting, and it's very hope-filled and encouraging. So here's Cynthia to tell you about her book, and it's a high on my recommendation list.
I'm the author of the new release, Afraid of the Light, and about 30 4 or 5 other books that are in the market, both fiction and nonfiction. You may have read some of them before. I'm stopping in today virtually to say that some of the sweetest phrases in the English language are libraries, librarians, and bookstores. I'm so thrilled to have the opportunity to stop in just to encourage you in the work that you do in getting books into the hands of readers and helping to steer readers toward books that will be meaningful to them, that they'll really appreciate. I don't know what authors would do without libraries, librarians, and bookstores. So grateful. Right now, I'd like to read just a tiny little snippet from Afraid of the Light so you can get a little hint of what the book is about. It's a story of a clinical psychologist whose job is to counsel hoarders and their families. The hoarder disorder or addiction is more prevalent than we would know, and the families that are affected, it's an issue that we don't often think about. So my intention in writing this story, this novel of imaginary characters, was to help us both get a glimpse into that life and what's behind the scenes, what's the story behind the story, but also to help increase our own compassion for those individuals or those families who are dealing with that. So this is a little snippet from the book. Plums. Yellow plums with a rosy blush hung from the branch that arched over the narrow path. I reached to pluck one past its prime. It didn't count as stealing, though the tree and path weren't mine. Another hour or two longer, and the spent plums would join those already decaying at the tree's roots. But few dying plums could reach the roots for all the decaying cardboard boxes littering the yard, black garbage bags bloated with rotting unknowns, Jenga stacks of damp newspapers, and damper still House Beautiful magazines. I rubbed my fingers over the plum's infant smooth skin, which gave a little under my touch. How had it survived? How had any fruit found the courage to grow in this tangle? Still holding the plum, I picked my way up the path to the back door as I once did at the end of a school day. Not this back door, another one, long ago reduced to ashes. This house, this bungled bungalow on an otherwise normal street, wasn't where I grew up. I'd had to grow up first before I could think about entering the home of a hoarder and care about who lived or tried to live inside. Libraries, librarians, bookstores, so appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for supporting authors the way you do. Just want to give you a good shout out and a God bless you. And please know that every time I can, I tell everyone that I know to take full advantage of all that a library and a bookstore has to offer them. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you, Cynthia. Kim Vogel Sawyer, her newest one is Unveiling the Past. This is a follow-up book to an older one one from a couple years ago called Bringing Maggie Home. You don't have to have read that one. This one has its own storyline, but it will tie in a little bit to that. And then she has another one coming out very soon called The Librarian of Boone's Hollow. This is a contemporary book, which is a little bit different for her. And then The Librarian of Boone's Hollow is historical. Regina Scott, A Distance Too Grand, American Wonders Collection. This is 1871 Grand Canyon, so that's a little different. Susan Sleeman, Homeland Heroes, Seconds to Live and Minutes to Die, 1 and 2. Suspense. Another biblical fiction book, Star of Persia by Jill Eileen Smith. These Nameless Things, Sean Smucker. I did not read this one, but I read his earlier fiction. They are a little otherworldly. There's always a little something out of the box there, but contemporary story with more of a message than appears on the surface, and I have enjoyed his books before. Maureen Snelling, A Blessing to Cherish. This is the sweet final chapter to the Bjorklund family saga. So she's been writing that for a very long time, and this is the final story in that series. What Mama Left Behind by Cindy Sproles. I recently read this one. First of all, every time I look at this cover, I want this hair. As a person who has straight hair, I just think that's so pretty. Set in the Appalachian Mountains in 1877. And what I learned about this, and they talk about it in the beginning of the book, is that the people in the Appalachian Mountains were pretty secluded. I knew that, but they're secluded from a lot of things, and so that meant that they didn't have a lot of the sicknesses that came through to a lot of the other people in the 1800s. But when progress started coming through and the railroad and other things started coming up into the mountains, and all of a sudden they were hit with all of these fevers and sicknesses that they had never been exposed to before. And for whatever reason, it hit the adults harder than the children. And so it left a lot of orphaned children on their own up in the mountains with no one to care for. And what Worry, her name is Worry Dresser, is 17 years old when her mother dies, and her father had already passed away. So she is left by herself, and what she's discovering is that all these little orphan children are coming out of the forest, of the hills, saying, your mama was feeding me, and she didn't know that. And so all of a sudden she has 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 children looking to her for food, and so she gathers them all together. She has a brother that is no good and is after something that he thinks Mama left behind. So what Mama Left Behind is a lot of different things, but it's a very encouraging book, and I really enjoyed the story. It's not real overly thick, but it's just got a lot of encouragement, and how they band together and become a family when there is no family left. So What Mama Left Behind. I think this is the first book, at least it's the first one we've ever had from Cindy Sproles. Amanda Stevens, From Sky to Sky. Zach Wilson Can't Die. Daredevil Zach Wilson isn't the first celebrity to keep a secret from the world, but his might be the most marvelous in history. Zach doesn't age, and injuries can't kill him. What's more, he's part of a close-knit group of others just like him. So, From Sky to Sky. Beautiful Ashes of Gomez by Buck Storm, Ballads of Paradise. When his wife Angel is killed in a head-on collision, Gomez feels he can't go on, so he doesn't. He spends his day in the bushes next to the crash site drinking Thunderbird wine, cradling a coffee can full of Angel's ashes by night. Slow, sure suicide with no one for company but the snakes, Elvis's ghost, and a strange kid named Bones. Across town, Father Jake Morales plays it safe, haunted by memories of his broken engagement, hiding his guilt, loss, and love behind a thick wall of cassock and ritual. But now a shady business deal threatens the town and his good friend Gomez, and Father Jake can no longer stand by and watch. He must act to save them all. But what happens when the rescuer isn't the one in need of saving? The Beautiful Ashes of Gomez is charmingly unconventional, heartfelt, and deeply human. Lives and hope collide in the town of Paradise, Arizona, stretching across decades and continents in this epic story of forgiveness, redemption, and love. Sounds a little out of the box, but kind of fun. So we haven't had this one long enough for us to dig in too far, but The Beautiful Ashes of Gomez by Buck Storm. Sarah Sundin, The Land Beneath Us, Sunrise at Normandy #3. In the midst of a global war, 2 forsaken souls search for personal peace. Sunrise at Normandy. Sarah Loudon Thomas, When Silence Sings. Coal Hills of West Virginia. And hers are mostly historical. I haven't read this one, but I enjoy Sarah Loudon Thomas very much, so. When Silence Sings. Collision of Lies by Tom Threadgill. The case was tragic, but it was an accident, right? So again, maybe more for some male readers if you have those that you need something for. Another True Colors book by Liz Tolsma, Green Dress. This one is Boston, I don't know the time, but historical. So true crimes in American history. Diamond in the Rough, Storing Up Trouble, American Heiresses. This is Diamond in the Rough, Storing Up Trouble is not yet here. Jen Toronto, hers are humorous historical romance. Oh, it is here. It's in my hand. There you go. Storing Up Trouble. You never know what you'll find when you look down. Hadley Beckett's Next Dish, Bethany Turner. Well, she's got a great name, we know that. Hers are very contemporary romance, fun. This one is obviously taking place in a kitchen with some cooking. I read one of her other ones. It is light and fun, maybe more for younger women, but anyone could enjoy it. Celebrity Chef is the character in here. Guys, we're on the last row. We almost did it. The Time of Jacob's Trouble by Donna Van Leer. A typical day at work turns into a nightmare for Emma Grady when her favorite patient and several colleagues vanish in front of her. Contemporary suspense, page-turning story will take you on a riveting journey from New York City to Israel, and in the final chapters, Donna turns the pages of the Bible, where you'll discover that God has made known to us the end from the beginning, and that things aren't spiraling downward, but actually looking up. The Time of Jacob's Trouble. The Lost Lieutenant and The Gentleman's Spy by Erica Vetch. Serendipity and Secrets. Regency era. I've heard good things of Erica. The Best We've Been is number 3 in the, I forgot their sisters' names, in the sisters book, Thatcher Sisters, sorry, that this is Johanna's book, The Best We've Been by Beth Vogt. The thing I like about these books is that these ladies are on a faith journey. It doesn't always get tied up neat with a bow. They would be ones that you would want to read in order 1, 2, and 3 because the story definitely runs from one to the next. But each sister kind of stars in her own book, although they all overlap into all of them. So this one deals with the sister who is probably the most rebellious mentally and the most stringent with her life, but she's thrown some curveballs and has to learn how to deal with that. So it kind of humanizes her a bit. But I really enjoyed this series. It is contemporary, not necessarily romance, just story of sisters and their lives and how they interact. So The Best We've Been. Becky Wade, My Stubborn Heart. This is a repackaged book, so it is a title that's been around before, but I don't know if we really talked about Becky Wade back when this would have come out, so you may not have heard about it before. She writes contemporary romance, but all of hers have a thread of something deeper, I guess, a stronger message in there. This is her newest one, Stay With Me, and the main character is a Bible teacher who happens to have an opioid addiction, and she ends up in this little cabin / cottage, who, depending on who you talk to, that's a joke in the book, and she is determined to deal with this addiction, but she still doesn't want anyone to know. And this man happens to have had a former girlfriend who also had a problem, and he is determined to help. Not at first, he doesn't want to get involved, but so it definitely has some strong themes in there. It's also definitely a contemporary romance. So Stay With Me, and Becky has won several awards for her books, and she is going to talk to you about her book and just say a few words. So here's Becky.
Hi, this is Becky Wade. I write Christian contemporary romance, and I wanted to wish all of you a very happy Church Librarians Day. I am so grateful for those of you who serve as librarians and booksellers. I can't tell you the number of times that when I've asked readers how they discovered my books, their answer has been the library or my local bookstore. The bookseller told me about your work. And I also want to have a shout out to any readers who might be watching. Thank you so much for reading books from your church libraries or from your local booksellers. You, readers, are the reason that Christian fiction is available at all, because you support it and you read it. And I hope that during this really difficult time during coronavirus that books have been a source of rest and encouragement and inspiration to you, that you've been able to escape from all of the genuine difficulties we've been facing into the pages of a really good novel from time to time. Bethany asked me just to say a few words about my new release, and so I have it here. This cover is so pretty. I am very much enamored with it, but this is my new release. It is the first book in the Misty River Romance series, and it's set in the Blue Ridge Mountains of northern Georgia. It is about a Bible study author and speaker who falls in love with the man who is the landlord of a large piece of property that houses the little cottage that she's living in. So I hope that it blesses you and speaks to you and ministers to you, because that's the power of Christian fiction. I'm so glad that I get to do this job. I'm thankful every day that even though the work is really challenging at times, that the Lord has called me and equipped me to do this. I genuinely love my job. And so I thank all of you for the work that you do to bring Christian fiction into the hands of readers. I really appreciate it. And by the way, books have been such an important thing for so many people during this pandemic. I know in our house, we're able to go by our local library and open our trunk, and the librarians are so dedicated that they take books out and they put them in our trunk for us, and then we drive off. And it's made a world of difference for our family to still have books. With everything else that's so uncertain and changing, we've still been able to access books, and I think that they're a lifeline for a lot of people. So thank you so much. Keep fighting the good fight.
So thanks, Becky. That was very fun to have these authors send us little video clips, and I very much appreciate that they did that. I didn't ask all the people that I wanted to, because this would be all day. If for any reason, A Nantucket Love Story by Courtney Walsh is a contemporary, also with some heavier themes. If for any reason, the reason the book is called that is because the mother of the main character wrote a book to her daughter. If for any reason I'm not here in the future, these are all the things I want you to know. And she happens to not be there in the future, and it is her daughter as an adult trying to find her way in the world, looking so much at this book and trying to figure out what her mother would have wanted her to do. And she goes back to Nantucket, where she spent a lot of summers, and is trying to deal with some life stuff. And it is like I said, it is romance, it is contemporary, but there's a lot of life lessons to learn in this one. And the next book on the list, Just Like Home, should be here in the next week or so. That's coming also from Courtney. That's a Harbor Point novel set in Michigan, I think, on the lake. And I've read all of those, and I've enjoyed them all. In fact, I've read Just Like Home, and I know you're gonna love it. It's a prima donna ballerina who kind of runs away from the ballet and ends up where her only friend lived, and she's determined to find a life, and she learns a lot of things along the way. So Courtney Walsh is one of our favorites around here, at least she's one of mine. Natalie Walters' Deadly Deceit and Silent Shadows, Harbored Secrets, suspense books. I've read the first in this series, and I was impressed, And so this is book 2 and 3 from a new author. Well, Susan May Warren has been busy. I'm just going to show you these. This is one series. So Knox, Tate, Ford, Wyatt, and Ruby Jane. And these are set in Montana Marshals, contemporary. And then The Heart of a Hero and The Way of the Brave is a series, Global Search and Rescue. So Susan May is one of those, you know what you're getting with those. They're contemporary romance, but also usually with a deeper thread and a pretty strong Christian message in those. Beth White, Reckless Love, a Daughter House series. These two may have met their match in each other. Oh, sorry, Daughtry House series. And Rosanna White, On Wings of Devotion, The Code Breakers, which Code Breakers was World War I, I believe, women that helped break codes and the spies in the war. Good thing I'm almost done. I'm starting to mumble. And the next one on that will come out soon. Promised Land by Robert Whitlow as book number 2 in the Chosen People series. Historical mysteries, religious intrigue, and political danger. Promised Land asks one momentous question. What if your calling puts you and your family in the crosshairs? So, Robert Whitlow. Abigail Wilson, Masquerade at Middlecrest Abbey. Those are kind of a Regency book, but with a little bit of suspense there. Mystery. Book of Lost Friends, Lisa Wingate. Last year we talked about Before We Were Yours. And this is a follow-up book. It's not related at all. This is set in Civil War time. I have heard very good reviews of this one. It is only available in hardcover now. I don't know when paperback will come out. But Lisa Wingate is a pretty amazing author. And so even though I haven't had a chance to read this one yet, I would recommend that to you. Okay, we're almost there. Beautiful Arrangement by Beth Wiseman. Amish book, Amish Journey novel. Karen Whittemeyer's newest one, At Love's Command, Hanger's Horseman #1, so the beginning of a new series. The English Daughter by Cindy Woodsmall, again another Old Order Amish story. And one of my favorites, Jamie Jo Wright, Echoes Among Stones, and brand new coming maybe even next week is The Haunting at Bonaventure Circus. Jamie Jo does a great job with dual timeline, suspense. Echoes Among the Stones is set in World War II and contemporary, and it deals with a woman whose sister was murdered back in World War II time, and then her now trying to figure out what happened. And her granddaughter comes to live with her. There's some humor in it, but there's always some hope and forgiveness and redemption. And The Haunting at Bonaventure Circus takes place on a circus wintering grounds up in Wisconsin, and it is contemporary and the time of I want to say 1918 maybe, in the circus. No, not 1918. Early 1900s, during the circus, and there are some strange events happening there. So Jamie Jo Wright is probably one of my favorite suspense. There's not a lot of it's not like a police chase one, it's just a suspense. So yeah, and if you like dual timeline, you will love her. And I'm now mumbling over my words, so that must mean it's time to go. So thank you guys for sticking with me. This is kind of a different way to do it. Well, it is a different way to do it. I much prefer to have you here in front of me where I can interact with you. But I thank you for sticking with me. And again, if you're catching it halfway through or at the end, we'll post the videos and you can watch it a little chunk at a time if that works better for you. So have a wonderful day, and I will come on and finish up with a couple of thoughts, and then we'll be done for the day. So thank you for joining us on our very first ever, and maybe hopefully our last, virtual library day. We will see you soon, and let me know if you want to come in and schedule an appointment to come. Bring your library committee and we'll get you set up, and I will tell you all the details later. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.